Assaf, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Iga.
I found you guys on Instagram, Yehud Intimacy, and I started following and listening and reading, and it really struck a chord with me about how important intimacy is to Judaism as Judaism
Right.
is to intimacy. And it's why I reached out, and I'm honored to have you on the show, and especially to talk about something that's so important to men, which is intimacy in their relationships and masculinity, which adds to that intimacy.
Mm. Totally
So
agree.
thank you. Thank you for being here, my friend.
I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. So
So
you have an incredible story, right? Uh, and I
some
didn't
say,
get, and I didn't get the in the pre-roll, but did you grow up religious? You're an observant Jew. I don't like to use the word religious. You're an observant Jew living in Israel. You're 100% Israeli. Did you always grow up observant?
yeah, I'm a practicing Jew, observant Jew today. Yeah, pretty observant, trying to be pretty observant. However, I grew up in secular Israel, and I would say like the strong, extreme secular Israel. So we weren't even like what would you call a traditional family that has some Jewish practices at home or respect to tradition. We're far more the intellectual, I have to say, the Ashkenazi kind of type intellectual Jews. Yeah, no racism, whatever, but like Judaism as spirituality or as a religion was something which was quite far away for us growing up. However, I was a very spiritual guy, a boy, even from a very young age. I was extremely interested in the esoteric parts of the world and the occult. I was interested in astral projection and mysticism from a very young
Mm.
age. And during my intense army service, after a couple of years, actually about 3 years in, I spent more than 5 years in the Israeli army. Um, then it really started hitting me really hard, this um, thirst for deep spirituality. So that's where things start shifting for me, and I really delved into that.
And here in the States, we always hear of stories of soldiers after their service, they take off to India, Thailand,
Right.
all different places. And that's what you did for about 13 years. Is that correct?
So yeah, most people go for about 6 months, and I was planning a 5 month trip. That's all I planned. So I had a very meaningful army service. I did grow up a lot there as a man, responsibility, um, danger, whatever there was. It was very very challenging. So you grow up, you become from a boy, an 8-year-old boy, you become a man with responsibility. But at 23, I finished the army. I could have stayed in. I decided I want to do something new and decided that I want to go for 5, 6 months. And I was really into, going to parties, having fun, but also going and doing meaningful retreats, find ashrams. Ashrams are those spiritual centers in India, do Vipassana meditation, like silent retreats in India or Nepal, other places. Um, um, like that, and really delve more into spirituality. I started about a year before that. I started a really deep spiritual journey with a teacher in Israel that was very meaningful for me. It really took me out of, I would call, even depression. Though I was very, very, um, I was a professional, was very good at what I was doing at the time. But there was this inner despair that so many men feel today, that they could be really good in what they're doing. They could be very meaningful in their business, in their career. They can even make good money and be in a relationship. Yet there's this deep feeling of something is not right. There's this void, this inner void inside of us. And I felt it really intensely during those years from 21 to 23. That spiritual journey took me out of it, and I started feeling hope. I started feeling deep hope that there's
Mm.
something much bigger in this world, and I wanted to explore it. At the time, growing up in secular Israel, and Judaism didn't seem like an option. So I didn't think there's any spirituality in Judaism. I heard there's something
Mm.
called Kabbalah, but I didn't know anything about it. So naturally, I was very much inclined to Oriental mysticism, to Oriental wisdom. So whether it's Buddhism or Hinduism or Advaita Vedanta or Tantra, Shaivism or meditation in whole, that was really, it was extremely interesting to me. And I decided to go and explore that. And I did. So I went for 5 months and I returned after 2.5 years, which was quite surprising to my family. It was like, you're supposed to be there for 5 years, and you're there for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And after 2.5 years, I was different. I did months of silent retreats. I started studying intense yoga and energy yoga, meditation, tantra, and also Ayurveda and other practice. Ayurveda is the herbal medicine, the Indian system of medicine, equivalent to the Chinese medicine. So I went deeply into healing, and I did heal myself tremendously, physically and emotionally in those 2.5 years. I returned to Israel and said, I'm staying here. So I stayed there for about a year and a half, studying uni. I was studying psychology. And after a year and a half, it's like, you know what? I'm done with this country. And I left. I sold all my belongings, which was a scooter, a mattress, and a Wi-Fi router. And basically I was done. And I left Israel again, and I only returned 10 years later.
Wow. And did you go back to the same places, India,
So
Thailand?
I decided I want to go and live in a spiritual community. And there was a spiritual community I already stumbled upon in the previous leg of my journey. And I wanted to go and move there. So I moved there, and I was spending about 6 to 8 months a year in Thailand. And the rest was either a few weeks in Israel or basically Europe, India, North America. That was the story for the following 10 years of
Now, let
my
me ask
life.
you this question, because a lot of people want to find themselves through spirituality, through energy. And did it take the 13 years, or were you just there at some point and you felt present, real with yourself? And that's why you continued to be there?
So this is a great question. Like, are you there because you're escaping real life? People often were telling me, but what about real life? So what do you mean real life? Real life, having a job, living, taking mortgage, paying rent, living like a normal human being. It's like, but that's where I live. This is my life. This is my house. This is my community. This is what I do. This is how I make a living. And this is where I get my satisfaction, my happiness. This is where I feel content. So this is my real life there. And yes, it was nice living on Coconut Island with a beautiful beach and, tropical fruit, wearing fisherman pants and so much cheaper and beautiful community. Some people traveling, some people were living there, residing there long term. It was beautiful. It was meaningful. I did feel it, but then a different calling started coming into my life, and a different voice started appearing, which took me more into this different journey, this second incarnation of my life, which was the calling of Judaism.
So let's talk about that real quick. Yeah, 13 years, Buddhism, yoga, tantra, meditation, Ayurveda, all these different things that you're studying. What kind of like sparked the interest or the voice of like, well, let me look into my tradition, Judaism?
So I want to be very frank. I mean, the Oriental mysticism, the Oriental system are extremely powerful. I had unbelievable mystical experiences, deep insights, deep understandings. I even had energetic powers. I mean, I can tell you crazy stories of meditation that I ran and people fainting when I'm holding their hand, like some evangelist preacher, but not exactly. Feel the power in my hands, but not exactly that. And so it was real. It was tremendous. I'm not underestimating. I'm not saying, well, that's one big lie. No, not at all. This is extremely powerful. Yet somewhere along the journey, when I was already over 10 years inside of that journey, deeply inside the Indian mysticism, the Oriental mysticism, I stumbled on a book. And there was a book, a Jewish book, a religious Jewish book written by a very famous rabbi that was a modern rabbi, was speaking more about emunah, faith in Hebrew. At that time was a period of my life that I was working intensely on what you would call in yoga the heart chakra. Yeah, anyone have ever heard about those? The chakras, the energy wheels, very famous in India, very famous in the New Age realm today. But I was doing very intense work, and it was not just like wishy-washy. It was really, really hours a day working with powerful techniques and really opening that deep feeling of love, of devotion, of faith. So I was reading books from different traditions speaking about faith. Some gave me a book in Hebrew. It's like, well, my Hebrew is pretty okay. I can handle a book in Hebrew. And that book was incredible. It was deeply touching, very simple story. It was a very simple book touching faith and the ability to give yourself a faith and the ability to put faith as your first priority in life. It was really incredible. I was like, wow, that's very deep. And one thing led to the other, and I started finding myself reading more and more books and listening to lectures. Now, I had no interest at that time to becoming a practicing Jew. I was very happy where I'm at, and I saw a lot of results there. And I was also becoming a teacher. I was also pretty successful. I had colleagues, I had students, I was making a living out of that. So for me, it was just incorporating my own tradition, terminology, methods, prayer. Some started putting it tefillin after a couple of years doing it. I felt that it's something that is really adding to my life very deeply into my spiritual, my holistic spiritual experience. So on my vacations in Israel, I decided, let's try a yeshiva, a Jewish school. Like, why not? So I was in Jerusalem, just went to a place that, one of the places was very much dealing with what's called Baal Tshuva. So people coming from all over the world, some of them engineers, doctors, lawyers, or just some guys who were, like Israelis selling stuff in the malls in
And the
America.
kiosks.
And just wanted to understand Judaism without any pressure. And it was very interesting. It was very interesting. I was reading, I was listening, and the wisdom was really touching me. So the tradition it was a few years of this transition because I kept doing my spiritual stuff there. I kept using those techniques. I kept going to different gurus. I kept having spiritual experiences, seeing a lot of interesting mystical things around me. And I was teaching it as well. But Judaism become stronger and stronger and stronger. So one day, and that was I will never forget that day. I was in Bali, in Indonesia, one of the most beautiful places in the world. Incredibly beautiful. I was there. I was walking in the rice fields. Incredible, serene, beautiful place. And I was walking there through the rice fields, and I have this deep feeling at the time that I lost faith in the spiritual system that I was at the time practicing. That means that I know this is powerful, that I know it can take you to certain places and a certain deep spiritual experiences and understanding and healing and energetic powers, yet is it really going to take me to where I truly believe you need to go, to what we call dveikus, like connection with Hashem, connecting with the Creator? And I felt that I don't have that faith anymore. So then I'm asking myself, then what are you doing with your life now? Do you want to become a religious Jew? No, it's too scary. Do you want to stay there? You can't. So what are you doing? So I returned back to Thailand at the time, and I stayed in my bungalow for 1 month, and I was just doing nothing. Canceled all my classes, all my consultations, all my clients. I was just sitting there and like, what am I doing myself? I spent 13 years of my life in this. I invested so much. I have become someone. Am I ready to give it all up to become no one? And in Israel, one of the most difficult countries in the world, a place that was always very difficult for me to live in, even though I grew up here. I was very happy not to live in Israel. I'm very frank.
Yeah.
It's still today, it's a very difficult country to live in, although I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. And luckily, I was planning, I had a tour in Europe planned. And so I said, okay, people are waiting, so I need to do that. So I just half-heartedly decided to fly to Europe. And that tour was incredible. I was teaching, I was making money. It was really, really successful. So that same voice that I had in Bali 3 months beforehand was like was a little bit pacified.
Yeah.
And it was really successful. I was really successful. I thought, okay, I can live with that. But that voice returned really intensely when I went to visit my family in Israel. And then the next 3 months, it was just realized that I need to be sincere with myself and I need to make the hard decision. And one day I just woke up in the morning. There were a series of miracles in a sense, like calling, synchronicities were happening. It was all happening in England at the time. I went to visit the person who is my wife and the mother of my children today in England. And there was a series of synchronicities. And one day I was like, okay,
That's it.
you have to do it. And I
Yeah.
started doing it.
Let me,
And yeah,
let me ask you this question real quick. Did you find now that you see the 13 years of, the Eastern philosophy and spirituality, and then the Jewish spirituality? Because a lot of people here in San Diego, especially, they go
yeah.
do ayahuasca and they're trying to find
Mhm.
their spiritual self and all that type of stuff without tapping into their Judaism, because I think that Judaism isn't taught, the spirituality isn't taught. It's more like the dogma, right?
Right, right,
Um,
right.
I follow Rav Daniel, I forgot what his name is. Uh,
Daniel Katz?
Daniel Katz, yeah. And he says, we have to teach spirituality first before we teach the dogma. That's what's
Right.
missing. So my question is, now that you see it in hindsight, do you have that same spiritual high level mysticism, energy, handwork that you had before, now that you practice that deepness within Judaism?
Great question. It's very different. And it's different in what I perceive in a good sense, because I see Judaism and other systems of spirituality in the world that they're aiming to something different, and there is a different methodology. So there's a different goal and there's a different methodology. And yes, some of the experiences that I had there were very powerful, and I haven't had them today yet. They might come one day, maybe, maybe not. I'm not yearning for them anymore, because what I see is I love, and this is something I like to speak a lot with my students and my clients today about relationships, about masculinity. Let's take it into something else. Today in the Western world, we know about addictions, porn addictions, gambling, sports. Not even that. Again, sports, gambling, porn is not the same thing. I love sports as well, but we love things that are giving us an intense experience. Everybody speaks about the dopamine rush, the dopamine trap today. We love those really strong experiences, and we can learn a lot from them. They give us a lot of motivation as well. Yet again, we know that this dopamine rush is like a really strong high and then a pretty strong crash sometimes. While there's something else which is much more consistent. What you would I like to refer to like other hormones like serotonin and oxytocin, which give you this serenity, this calmness, with this happiness, which doesn't have peaks and lows and peaks, but rather that is more consistent. And I like looking at it as a little bit like, well, we're men, right? One of the most incredible experiences that men have in the world today is to conquer, a new woman. I'm courting a woman and she's giving in to me. I have her. And we know that sometimes in the superficial world that we have today, all we want is that the X on the gun. Let's be frank. I'm sorry I have a keep on my head, but let's be frank. This
Oh,
is the world we
100%.
were living in. I had many times in my life. All I wanted is that experience. In the end,
Just the
there was
bullseye.
no love. There was no connection. It's not that I wanted that woman like, oh, I'd love to be with her and to build a home with her. No, it was about a strong experience. And that's me. It's not something holistic. Well, when you have children today, and my children, God bless them, I love them with all my heart. They can be very challenging. Just an hour ago, I was getting into bed while my wife was working. It's three kids, 6.5, a 4.5, and a 2-year-old, making the house look like a dumpster, basically, and playing up and just like, Abba, yeah, you try to mess with us, literally.
We,
You're me smart.
we call it, it's a battle every night. I have an 8, a 9, a 5, and a 3-year-old, and every night it's a battle. Like we have to look at my wife and I, we look at each other like, are you ready? We take a breath. Okay, let's go to war and try to get
Exactly. Yet, the fact that my son is telling me, Abba, I'm not going to listen to you because you don't want to give me an ice cream. Does this change anything in the level of love that I have towards him? Not at all.
Yeah.
At that moment, I might not feel it when I'm really I wish I could smack you. Well, I'm not, but like
Well,
I
yes,
would
you wish. It's
literally,
fine. You
100
do.
years ago, you would have gotten a big smack, Today we're not because we're politically correct, but 100 years ago, surely you would have. But the level of love is there when I see him, when we're chatting, we're looking in his eyes, I feel that love. This is the serotonin, this is the oxytocin. And this is a consistent experience. And this is where Judaism is aiming at. So peak experiences are there. But what we're looking for is that consistent happiness in the background. And I think that something that there's a Hebrew term that is called nachas, like nachat, which means like content. Like this feeling of content, which is there, which is deeply helping you with dealing with the troubles of this world. And this world existence is difficult. Wherever you're at, whether you're religious or not religious, the world is going to challenge you. And when you have the deep presence of content inside of you, this is where you can abide and keep yourself going with happiness without the need of constant searching of excitement and the peak experience, the dopamine rush experiences. So that's how I kind of see things today in retrospect to traditions and religions. Now, I don't want to say, as I said before, I have tremendous respect to some of the methodologies in Buddhism or Hinduism, to some of the philosophical concepts and the spiritual experiences or the spiritual techniques. Yet, the chances to go into this experience, the need for an experience, it's much greater than in a very kind of like down to earth, so to speak, religion, which constantly keeps you in check. Yeah, I'm a spiritual guy. Well, your kids are going to show you you're not that spiritual, and that consistent work, the constant work you have to give in, really helps you to step out a little bit out of your ego and yourself and your needs, and to be someone that you never thought you will be able to be. Is that how kind of see things today?
I love it. So what I'm getting, what I'm getting
please.
from this is that the other things is like chasing the constant high, right? And the methodologies are incredible and they're useful and they're practical. Yet in Judaism and Jewish mysticism and spirituality, it's the joy, right? The constant joy. That's what we're going for, the constant emotional calmness and peace and presence, as opposed to always trying to find the next hit, the next high. And I think that, for example, I have friends who have done ayahuasca, gone to different things, and they come back and they need it again and they have to go back, or they got something out of it for a small time period, but they're not practicing what happened during that time in that event for a long period of time. So I love it.
To be frank, because I like to be accurate, you do find methods coming from Buddhism of mindfulness, which are very powerful as well, that do deal with this consistent mindfulness, this constant mindfulness that's supposed to keep you in equanimity or in content. But even there's a big difference, because in the end, there is more about seeing the experience right now, while Judaism always refers to the source. So like, what is behind that? What is basically the will of the creator, of Hashem, in the experience you're having now? So it's a bit of a different aspect of mindfulness. So it's just a point here, just to be accurate and to give all faces of this very, very deep subject and debate.
Got it. You brought up 2 points that these are the 2 that I want to dive into in this interview, of course, which you are, would you work with your clients on? One is masculinity, right? So I'll ask you kind of what is, Jewish masculinity? What does that mean? And then I want to dive into what is Jewish intimacy. We have a lot of married men listening to the podcast, and I think it's extremely important that our relationships are as strong as our masculinity is, in order for us to be feel more masculine and be able to be successful in anything that we do. So, Assaf, in your opinion, what is Jewish masculinity? What does that mean?
So, what is Jewish masculinity? Let's start with what is masculinity.
So let's start with masculinity. I think there's
exactly. What is masculinity?
I follow a lot of people, right? I have friends who are very Christian, and they teach kingdomness and that type of a different thing. I have Muslim friends who teach like their masculinity. I don't know if there's a difference in Jewish masculinity or not, but what is masculinity? And if there's a difference with Jewish masculinity, let's add that flavor into it.
So I think that all tradition pretty much agree on most aspects of masculinity. You'll find it in Islam, find it in Christianity. You'll definitely find it in India or in China. And there is a difference in the methodology. There is a difference in the way you approach masculinity in the end. What is masculinity? So I always like to start with the plus and minus, kind of like going to China, the yin and yang. So the yang is more the masculine, the yin is the feminine. And this creation, and we see it in the Torah, in the Bible, it started with Genesis. It starts about the fact that God created the world polarized. So we have 2 aspects of this world. We have a plus and a minus. That's how this world is created. And the flow of energy, whether it's electricity or anything else in this world, energetic or spiritual, goes through this plus and minus. So there's something receptive and something emissive. There's always a light and there's always a kli. There's a vessel that contains the light. Can never run away from that. And the same is that we have a masculine body, and we can run away from our masculine body, but we have a masculine body, and it will force us to try to bring masculine qualities, harmonious masculine quality into that. And if there's a woman, she has a feminine body, and biology is going to force her to try to bring feminine aspect into that. And if she will try to diverge from that, then that's where suffering or anxiety or this discord will hit her life. And that's very much into relationships. Like, if you ask me what is the main principles, where are all issues of relationships stemming from, I will tell you, whether it's intimacy or communication or resentment or anger, it is all stemming from the inability of a man or a woman to play their biological role. That means that to bring more masculinity into a relationship or bring more femininity to a relationship. Now, we have both sides. I have a plus and minus, I have yin and yang. I have a feminine side to me. I'm not to be like a macho man that cannot feel anything. I need to be receptive. I have to be receptive when I'm talking to my wife, but I want to be receptive in a masculine way. That means that in this game, I want to be balanced. I want to have both sides developed. Yet, the yin and yang is constant. When I'm teaching a lecture now, when I'm teaching, let's say I'm teaching in front of an audience, I'm being emissive. I'm the yang, and they're the yin. They're now receiving, right? When I'm an expert, when I go to my accountant, and I have no clue about taxes, I'm receptive and he's emissive. The same thing is in biology. Well, procreation goes that I have, and every male in this world, whether he's a human or non-human, the male has to give something to the woman in order to create something new in this world, to create fruit, an offspring. So that means that I need to learn to develop my feminine side, yet I need to be a little bit more on the plus side. Well, she has to be a little bit more on the feminine side. And that's where this harmonious connection, what I call the cycle of attraction, starts. And that's where we start feeling more natural. And that is very challenging, because to be a man means that you have to be present, emissive, to give influence, like what we call in Kabbalah, mashpia, a giver. That's hard. A lot of people like to give this example that's a little bit masculine, by constantly climbing uphill. It requires a lot of effort. Staying present, staying able to control your own emotions when your wife is being illogical. You've never seen that before, right, guys? Yeah.
Never.
When she's emotional, we've never seen that before. And staying inside with yourself and not thinking that I married a crazy woman. Oh no, I made a mistake. Oh my goodness, well, what's going on here? And it doesn't matter whether you're a Jew or non-Jew, practicing a Jew or not practicing a Jew. Even if you're most practicing Jew, believe that you're a deep servant of Hashem. At that moment, it's like, you know what? Nah. Hashem made a mistake there. She's not my real. No. That was a mistake. I should have married that lady that I met once. She would have been my perfect match. This lady, doesn't matter I have 8 kids with her today. No. That was a mistake. I lost it because of my sin. This is something that is going through the head of thousands and thousands of, maybe hundreds of thousands of Jewish men.
Of course. I have to listen. You say I want to be frank. There's moments in life where you look and you're like, what did I do? Did I make the right decision? Because
believe me, she has the same feelings all the time.
I'm sure, because we're not saints and we do stupid stuff. Let me ask you this question, Assaf, because I think that the yin and the yang is very, very important, feminine and masculine. I see a lot of times that the woman takes on a very masculine role, right? And the man takes a very feminine role. We are taught as Jewish men, you got to be a mensch, happy wife, happy life, and to, just agree with her. And as opposed to taking on a masculine role, not being macho, like you said, and, telling her to shut up and sit down. But I see roles reversed a lot, which is causing anxiety in both. In the couple.
I agree. So there is a lot of work for women as well. Receptivity, letting go, which are the most maybe characteristic feminine traits. It's tough. It's tough as well, but that's the feminine work. What I'm talking about is not shut up, let me tell you what to do, because this is not Jewish masculinity. This is not holistic masculinity. And this is not a masculinity that is connected to God. That the fact that there's a will, there's a way, there is a purpose to things. What we're talking about is really constantly having this deep presence that I can control my own emotions. I don't have to go into the storm, and I keep my own composure and my own sense of self there. And then if I want to give way and to agree and to please her, I do it. But I don't do it out of fear. Because if I do it out of fear, I'm going to hit resentment afterwards. I meet men all the time. So they're like, my dad told me that you want to have a shalom bayis, you want to have a good peace at home. Whatever she wants, you say yes. And it doesn't help them. It sometimes destroys their relationship because they don't do it because they want to do it. They feel obliged out of fear. And you know what happened is that even when she gets everything she wants, she feels that resentment, and she feels that he's not safe, that he actually doesn't value me. Women feel it, guys. You know that. They feel everything. You can never hide anything from them. So they feel that you're not valuing them. Then, everything starts collapsing. Intimacy issues, resentment, physical disconnection, discomfort. So many things are happening there. Depression. And because, I'm not doing it out of strength, I'm doing it out of fear. I'm talking about, I'm doing that out of strength. If I want to give in, I said, you know what? Sure, I'll do it. And I'll do it out of sincerity. And I can admit, I made a mistake there. And you know what? You're right. I should have done that. But I'm holding my own sense of self. And this is where masculinity is really strong. And that requires presence. It requires sincerity. It requires connection. It requires faith as well. Because when I have deep faith that this is not a mistake here, this is not a mistake. And whether you're a frum Jew or a Christian, and I told you, I work with Christians as well. And I like working with people that are religious because religion and faith is a tremendous masculine trait.
I agree.
Because when I have faith, I can connect myself to something bigger. When I connect to something bigger, that brings me presence and a sense of purpose. And then I can stay sincere to myself and to my needs. Sometimes I need to, you know what? I'm putting my foot down. Sometimes, you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy to give way to your needs.
Well, Assaf, why do you think men are being demasculated or emasculated, whatever the correct term is today? What's going on? What's causing that?
Because when we see masculinity today from Hollywood, from pop culture, all we see is a very physical, aggressive, materialistic sense of masculinity, and there is a sense of masculinity there, whether it's the businessman, the rock star, or the athlete. I'm not saying they don't, but is that the inner strong, deep, spiritual, present masculinity we're looking for? Probably not. So we are extremely confused by that external masculinity, which actually comes from lack, from scarcity. I want to be the big businessman or the rock star or the athlete, so women would look at me.
Mm-hmm.
So people would recognize me. So I won't feel that weak kind of guy that the girl didn't want to date when I was in high school. Nobody wanted to go with me to the prom. So if I would go to the gym and have big muscles or make a lot of money, then the world will recognize me. So I'm doing that out of scarcity. Masculinity is always coming from a sense of completeness. I know that I'm not complete. I know that there's infinity out there, but I know that I will get that through purpose, action, connection to something greater than me, rather than by getting women to love me, the world to love me. That is another trait that kills relationships today. She doesn't respect me. Well, do you respect yourself? Why do you need her to respect you? I'm not saying she shouldn't. She should respect him, but you try to force her to respect you. You cannot force anyone to respect you. Respect comes not because you force them to respect you. Respect comes because there is a sense of appreciation. And that comes when she sees your masculinity. She sees your ability to contain her emotions, her needs, her complex personality. Then she will tremendously appreciate you, tremendously respect you. And she will do anything for you. But if she will feel that you're constantly trying to suck that respect out of her, she will close off. And then she will start playing up with like, you know what? I don't want you to do that. I need this. Buy me that. Buy me this. Do this. Oh, so many other things that women do when they feel this scarcity, when they feel this need of like deep appreciation for their husband.
So Assaf, I guarantee you there's guys listening to this and they're just like, that's me, that's me, that's me. The moment that you mentioned
that's all of us,
right?
It's all of us. This is all of us.
What is one step or the first step that the Jewish man listening should take to be able to start switching into more masculine so that in the marriage you're not getting the resentment, the anger? You said something that like I'm sure my wife might listen to this, but
I'm sorry.
Said, no, it's okay. It's okay. This is what it's all about. It's about being honest and open, right? When you said that, when she started saying, I want this, and I need this, and then this, and I see that sometimes in her, and I know that it's my fault because of the work that I've done. I don't get angry and say, oh, this is her. She's being like this. I'm like, oh, what am I doing? That's not right. What am I doing that's lacking in that masculinity to make her feel safe? So what's the first step that a man should take so he can get back into his masculinity and have his wife get into her feminine side?
That's a great question. So it really starts with an emotional balance. And it emotional balance is something that is very important. So it's hard to portray these deep masculine traits when you're lacking deep confidence because of childhood traumas, etc.
Hold on one
However,
second.
yeah.
Hold on one second. I want you to say that again, that you're lacking deep masculinity or deep confidence because you're lacking deep masculinity.
So what I'm saying is it's difficult to actually generally bring out that masculinity when you're lacking confidence.
It's amazing. That's
Because
so well said. Yeah.
because wait a minute, it's scary to be masculine. It's so much easier to go into this, you know what, and you did this to me, and that, and I need this, or to check out completely. You know what? Screw you. I'm not talking to you. I'm going away. Don't speak to me like this, or whatever we do, each one with their own stuff, while
or just not
being
making.
in the midst of that storm and staying there and saying, you know what? I am okay.
I think the biggest
It's
thing,
exactly what she wants to feel at that moment.
yeah, I think the biggest thing also is, Asaf, sorry, is when I'm talking in terms of me. By the way, I always say this on the podcast. I believe that God puts somebody on the podcast for me to learn from because I need it at the moment, and then I share that wisdom with everybody else. Um,
Amazing.
it's also a lack of masculinity with not making decisions and not making choices, and
Very,
and,
very correct.
and working out of fear. And
Right.
so your wife, the woman, sees that and they get scared. By the way, I'm talking to myself, and they get scared, right? And they take on that more masculine energy to make the decisions because you're not doing so.
And 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 then most women will agree that they don't like that.
Yeah.
They don't like that because it's in a sense like I need to take responsibility for both of us. I don't want to do that. It's hard enough for me to take responsibility for my own self. I don't want to make this these deep, strong decisions on my own. So she might have an opinion, and you many times, and you will need to take an opinion in consideration, and many times you might have to take her opinion, but she will still be looking for you to be the person who says, you know, I'm taking responsibility. It's on me. Even though we're going with what you really want, it's still on me. And this is big. So many relationships are falling today, and we said we're going to speak about intimacy, and intimacy is something that is affected because of this. When you're unable to make decisions, to take responsible decisions, it's something to take away some of the attraction because you don't seem so masculine. Because basically, you need to make decisions for me. Wait, okay, great. But if I need to be the man in the relationship to take decisions, why would I be intimate with you? Right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of like I lose attraction there. That becomes very difficult. So I want to make I want to make the decisions, and decisions fall many times because of our fear to take responsibility. And men tell me, you know what? I don't like doing the financial responsibility. I don't want to take financial responsibility at home because she's way better than me in numbers. It's like, sure, that's great. She might be an accountant. She knows numbers better, but spiritually, psychologically, who takes responsibility for your financial situation? By the way, even if she makes more money than you, who is the person who has to be in the front line with this? You, not her.
Keith,
You,
Keith,
even if
Keith,
she's really good in numbers.
Keith Yaki in episode 41 of the podcast said that women don't want to make love to a boy.
Exactly.
They want to make love to
The
a man.
mother-child relationship is something very common.
Yeah.
One of the biggest intimacy killers.
Now, so we talked about kind of like the first step to masculinity. What is something else that a man can do
So
to retrospect, right? So like
confidence.
confidence. So
But
that's number one.
but confidence is not easy.
No.
So that's where it becomes tricky. How do I build confidence? So I build confidence. So I do need to do my spiritual and emotional work, and that is very helpful. my adolescent years. I do need to go into that. That is important. Yet I do need to make the decision that I do want to be more masculine in the holistic spiritual meaning of that. And that where another very important aspect comes into play, my sense of purpose.
Mm.
The more purpose I have, and I'm talking purpose, not just I have a purpose to, make a lot of money, which is not a bad thing, right? But the sense of purpose of something which is meaningful for me and for my and the world and my family, of course, inside of that, this is where really masculinity flourishes. Because masculinity is about emission, giving, influence, working, climbing uphill, as we mentioned. And so the more I'm trying, because nobody says you're going to get all your goals, but the more I'm invested in getting my goals in the bigger sense, in the bigger picture, right? The more I connect to my inner powers and to my inner masculinity. And when you feel that, one of the things that is very, very debilitating for women, that again is an intimacy killer when you see their husband in this shallow kind of like state of like, I'm not here, I'm not there. I'm kind of in despair. I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know where I'm going to. And also, it's very much something that you see in their spiritual level. So I meet all the time men. I work with, as I said, I'm working with different men. I work with a lot of frum men. And one of the things you see when they're lacking masculinity and there's issues at home, their spiritual practice is crashing. And they find themselves unable to go to shul. They lose faith. They find themselves falling into different practices that are not very useful to anyone in the world, religious or non-religious, like addictions, watching, etc. You know the trick, and they lose the spiritual, and that's where this vicious cycle is starting, because you're losing your spiritual purpose and practice. She feels that, and it's so important for her to feel that my husband has this verticality in him. He's connected to something greater. I want him to bring that in. And if I need to be the person that is pulling him into a purpose, then again, we reverse roles.
Yeah. I wrote down confidence number 1, 2, purpose. And for me, it just came up automatically was 3, faith. Right? I think, and you talk about the verticality, and what comes to me is like a foundation. When a man has confidence, purpose, and faith, I just saying that, it makes me feel like that man is unstoppable, right? It's
100%, 100%.
And confidence, I would even add emotionally, physically. Like, I believe that a man should be able to protect his family, right? Doesn't have to be this massive bodybuilder, but should have confidence if God forbid something happens.
Right.
So those types of things, like confidence, purpose, and faith, that just makes it sound really awesome to me. So
and that's something that is going to give him the strength to deal with any issue in life, whether it's issues in the relationship, communications, issues with his kids, as you mentioned, the daily battle of getting him to sleep or whatever that is, and also at work or within his own self. We're going to have challenges constantly in life. And when you have that verticality, and this is something we have to remember, like the cross, what the Christians like to use, it's a very there is something very deep in there in that cross, because it refers to the two axes of reality, the vertical and the horizontal. And at least for Jews, we're trying to get both of them, because we're supposed to get married. We want to get married. We want to have a deep relationship. We want to have kids. We need to work. We need to feed our kids. We need to buy a house or find a place for them to live. Yet we're trying constantly, 24/7, to bring spirituality in, whether in the way we educate, the way we connect to our wives, physically or non-physically, and everything we eat, everything we do. So we constantly want to be in that middle point between the two axes. And that's really difficult. So you need faith, but you need confidence that you can figure things out. You can really rely on that your purpose, your connection, your emuna, yeah, your faith that there's something much bigger than you is there, and that you are valuable to this world. And you have value which is intrinsic to the world. The world needs you. That's where you find your purpose. And at that middle point, that's where you can make the right decision. And that's where you can deal with anything coming your way.
I love this. I mean, I think that these 3 points are so integral, so important for a man, which was confidence, purpose, and faith. And I even think about that, I think my wife would find it sexy and attractive. I think that walking through, even doing a business deal, right? Like if I'm going to go to a networking event where I'm confident, I know my purpose and I have faith, like I can walk in with my shoulders held up high with respect as well. Like those 3 things are really a foundation to be able to walk through anything and be okay. Either you make the right decision or sometimes you make the wrong decision, right? We make the wrong decisions in business.
You're going to make mistakes,
Yeah.
100%. Question is, are you going to crash or are you going to start again? Which is another masculine trait.
Yeah.
Masculine trait means that I'm able to cope with whatever's going on. I'm not going to crash. I'm going back to this verticality that there is a purpose, there is a way. I haven't figured it out yet, but there's a way.
Yeah.
And that's where I can continue trying and doing the right thing.
Love it. Assaf, this has been incredible. If you're a man listening to this and you want to work with Assaf, you can follow him on Instagram at Yichud Intimacy. We'll put the link in the show notes. Again, this was so valuable to me as a Jewish man and thinking about masculinity and what is needed in my life at the moment so that I have more intimacy with my wife. And not just intimacy with my wife. I want to say something that's coming up to my heart, which is intimacy with myself, right? To be present and feel good and intimate with me, I need the confidence, the purpose, and the faith to walk every day being okay in my mind, in my heart, and my soul.
I totally agree. Intimacy is not about physical connection. Intimacy is about living without buffers, living without what is holding us from finding our real purpose and our real, true, genuine power inside of us. And so intimacy with myself, intimacy with the world, and definitely intimacy emotionally and physically, because they're interconnected with my life partner.
Assaf, this has been incredible. As I tell every guest, may you be blessed with chazak ve'ematz, strength and courage. I think we're going to have to go around 2 on this one. I think that
I'll be happy.
We're just starting the conversation.
I enjoyed every moment of that. I love talking about these things. They're so valuable. And so I'll be happy to do round 2.
Perfect. Again, if you want to reach out to Assaf, go to Yichud Intimacy on Instagram. We will put it in the show notes. You guys can click on that. Also, we'll put it in the YouTube video so you guys can see it. Brother, it's been a pleasure and an honor. For those of you who are listening, stay tuned for the next episode of the Tribesmen Podcast.